Well, a summer day in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, another brutally hot day in parts of New England. New York City, as measured at the Park Central, got to 91 today. So it took till Thursday to get there. We've got pockets of severe weather around. We're going to talk about that. And Alberto is gone. At least the center of Alberto is gone. It's now way inland into Mexico. Still getting some rains, though, in parts of South Texas and in Mexico itself. And there's a little curl northeast of the Bahamas that the Hurricane Center is keeping an eye on. So we'll take you through all of this tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow, the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Get one and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. Use the coupon code SPRING 2024, at least between now and Sunday, because Sunday I'm going to change it. If you do, you'll get
10% off.
That's
10,
correct.
yes.
Yes. By the way, I meant to tell you last night with the passing of Willie Mays. Did you know that Willie Mays did an episode of Bewitched?
I would not doubt it. In fact, I was thinking back. Well, I remember seeing Willie Mays on The Dating Game.
Really?
On Channel 7 ABC back in the 60s.
Well, yeah, the episode was called Twitch or Treat, so it was a Halloween episode, and Willie Mays played a warlock, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. I've never seen the episode, but I saw some posts about it today.
There's a tribute, a backhanded tribute to Willie Mays in The Honeymooners, one of the original 39 episodes. It's the episode where Alice's sister gets married.
Oh, right, yeah.
And Ralph was making the comment that it was the first time she ever saw the bride throw the bouquet, and she ran and caught it herself because there's always the bride's maid, but never the bride. And Alice says to Ralph, she didn't run and caught. She slipped, and Ralph says she slipped. I wish I could slip like that. I'd be playing center field for the New York Giants.
Oh God. So did you get to 90 today?
More than that, I got to, and another thing that annoys me is the technology of today. I had taken more than a few photographs with my wonderful and very expensive iPhone that my wife forced on me a few years back. Took pictures of the message board on our weather station. We do not have a Tempest weather station. We have a Davis weather station. It says very good because I wanted to show the numbers. We hit 95 today, and we had a heat index of 108 at one point. So I said, let me take a picture of this. I'll take the picture and then use it to put it on my Facebook page or whatever. And what I usually do is I take the picture, send it to AOL or to my Gmail address. Never arrived, and I sent it several times. Never arrived. I don't understand why that is. That I can't. I thought about it later on that maybe I could just airdrop it onto my Facebook page, but still, it's annoying. Anyway, 95 was our high temperature here in beautiful downtown Putnam Valley at a little after 4 o'clock this afternoon, and yes, the heat index hitting 108 degrees at one point.
This morning it was so beautiful here. Okay. I mean, it was really, really gorgeous. 85 was.
Yeah, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, on the chat board, my wife, the one you ever hear about the women sticking up for their man, and here on the chat board she says he probably did it wrong. Thank you, dear. When you're looking for that shoulder massage tonight at when we bed down,
you're going to do it with a cheese grater.
Forget it.
Well, just to show you, we often.
Now, what we're all going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to go and pack up and move to the deep south. We're all going to go to Georgia, where Joe Chiaffi is, because down where Joe Chiaffi is, It never gets hot. It's
No,
always
Atlanta
beautiful.
got, Atlanta got to 90 today. Okay, which
You must have
is
gotten to
a big
let me
deal.
take a guess. Let me take a guess. You got to about 82 or 83.
82.
Yeah.
82. This morning it was in the low 60s, but the dew points were low. I mean, it really was a delightful because I went to the dog park around 7:45 this morning, and I had a short sleeve shirt on, and you almost needed like something a little heavier than that. But it was just been so delightful. And I actually just put up the high temperatures across North Carolina. I mean, it was mostly upper 80s to around 90. The same for South Carolina, a little hotter as you in a few spots around Columbia got to 92 or 3. But North Georgia and into Eastern Tennessee, it was mostly upper 80s to around 90. And Virginia also upper 80s to around 90. This is some heat wave, you know. Um, Now, I don't want to overstate that because of the fact that if you were in upstate New York, like in Albany today, where it got to 97, okay, if you're in central and particularly into northern New England, in some places it was another brutal day. The southern half of Maine, Augusta 95 for a high. Bangor got to 97. Uh, Moosehorn, Maine, Joe. Moosehorn, Maine, which is in down east Maine, away from the coast, 97 for a high. It was about I was 7 to 10 degrees cooler in northern Maine. It was mid to upper 80s there, so they got a little bit of a break. This is the land where nobody has air conditioning, by the way, because you don't need it because it doesn't get hot there very often. But when it does, you're stuck.
Yes.
But it's been this is because of how the ridge built in the eastern part of the United States. It's been mostly west winds in areas to the north and winds coming in off the ocean, south shore of Long Island low to mid 80s. That was it. I probably got to low 90s in some inland spots, but um, this is under this heat wave from the standpoint of what the models were, particularly the European, which was going completely off the wall last week for this. Um, how how much they have underperformed. Not this so-called heat ridge. Yeah, it's hot, but it's nothing crazy. It just isn't.
Well, you need to make it crazy because if you're in television, you need to get people to tune in to give your support and help bolster ratings. That's what it's all about.
Oh, is that what it was all? It was always been about that.
And that's always what
It's
it's.
always been about that. Well, on the watches and warnings map tonight, we got a couple of things going on. Aside from the fact that there are heat advisories up for tomorrow, and we now have excessive heat watches for Northeast. Now, this is where the Weather Service, somebody like could use a little bit of common sense. This red that they use, this red, this very, very dark red. Anytime I see it, I think it's an excessive heat warning. Instead, it's an excessive heat watch. Okay. And they have a purple one for excessive, sort of a purplish one for excessive heat warnings. Why not make the dark red to me says, warning, and not so much the purple? I don't know. You might think differently.
Oh, well, I mean, everybody's opinion on coloration differs. So yeah, I could probably choose a different color
Yeah.
to.
I just see that red, that very, very dark red immediately comes to mind that it should be a warning because it's very similar to the red color for a flash flood warning, by the way. The purple shows up in Southwest PA, Northwest Ohio, Northeast Indiana, where it's been for days, and those are excessive heat warnings, and there'll probably be a few more. There's a severe thunderstorm watch in the western half of Maine and New Hampshire, reaching down into parts of Massachusetts as some thunderstorms move through New England. And we've got a severe thunderstorm watch up for southeast Wyoming, northeast Colorado, much of western and north central Nebraska, some southern counties in South Dakota. And flood watches, flash flood watches up for southeast South Dakota eastward into southern Minnesota. And we have a handful of flash flood warnings going on there. Also, some flood watches up in southeast Utah. And we don't talk about Utah very much. Now, southeast Utah, the western counties of some of the western counties, the southwestern counties of Colorado, and northwestern New Mexico. This is the some of the moisture from Alberto is going up around the periphery of the ridge and ahead of the deep trough that's out in the west. And that's why you've got that. And then we've got various heat advisories and excessive heat warnings in the interior for central and southern California. So there's that. On the satellite loop tonight, I'm going to update these. I haven't updated them. I should have updated the maps before we started the show. But we do have a lot of lightning strikes going on up in New England. There's a uh, nasty looking line here, Joe, in Massachusetts. You want to pull the radar up and show everybody? I would appreciate it if you did.
All righty. Hang on.
And in the meantime, we also have going on some lightning strikes around the lower Great Lakes and in and around Lake Erie. Also back in parts of northern Nebraska and southern South Dakota, extending back down into Colorado and southeast Utah. And you can see the moisture from Alberto in Mexico. And some of that, the cloudiness is now moving into southern New Mexico. So some of that moisture is going to wind up lifting northward. And of course, you've got this small low. uh, there's another one of these broad lows that is sitting off the southeast coast. It's not a well-defined center, according to the Hurricane Center, but there is a broad low there. You can actually see there's some rotation going on, but it's a small system and it continues to sort of plod along to the west. And we'll see what they do with it on the 8 o'clock update. And there's your radar right now. And yeah, some nasty thunderstorms there in Massachusetts.
I could show them to you if you give me sharing capabilities.
Yes, just give me a moment here. Sorry about that. And okay, let's go. There you go. You're all set.
Yeah.
Never let it be said that I would deny you sharing capabilities.
Here is what we have now on Boston radar, and you can see, yes, it's a pretty nasty line. Moving now, the last few frames of the loop, it's in north central, draped across north central Massachusetts, from approximately Pittsfield to let's see, Fitchburg, and this line is moving slowly to the south and to the east, and in those areas of dark red, that's where the thunderstorms are really loaded for bear, with lots of cloud to ground lightning and probably some hefty, brief torrential downpours, and also some strong gusty winds. So all of this is moving again in a southeasterly direction. Not sure. Here's Boston. If it reaches Boston, the showers and storms may actually have diminished somewhat. Maybe we'll keep an eye on it. But right now, that's where all of the action is going on. Is again in Massachusetts, dropping on down through southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire, and into again the northern end of Massachusetts.
And our friends on Tornado HQ showing that there are 9 working severe thunderstorm warnings at the moment, 1 tornado warning, and 1 special marine warning. And they break down with 4 warnings, Joe, in Massachusetts, 1 in Montana, 3 in Nebraska, 1 in New Hampshire, 1 in New York, and 1 in Ohio. And just to see, where is it? Here we go. Here's the mouse. Okay, so we have this was just issued a couple of minutes ago, a severe thunderstorm near Philmont, or 9 miles south of Chatham, moving southeast at 15, covering Berkshire County in Massachusetts and Columbia County in New York. So it's like right on the border there. And that warning was just issued. By the way, it's 7:51 Eastern time. So obviously, if you're watching this later tonight, it's uh, it's all dated. So be sure to go to weather.gov to get all the latest weather information regarding severe weather in your neighborhood. We have another severe thunderstorm warning Um, Severe thunderstorms located along a line extending from near Merrimack to near Salem to Dracut, Dracut, moving east at 20, and that's in Essex and Middlesex counties in Massachusetts. Um, we have another one in Massachusetts that was out 20 minutes ago for Franklin and Worcester County. Worcester, severe thunderstorm over Sunderland, or 8 miles north of Amherst, moving east at 10 miles per hour. And a brand new severe thunderstorm warning, but this one's in Ohio. A severe thunderstorm located along a line extending from near Willard to near Chatfield, moving southeast at 10. And that covers the counties of Crawford, Huron, Richland, and Seneca counties in Ohio. So, and there's one tornado warning that still has 8 minutes to go, and this is in Nebraska. This is a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado, was located 9 miles southeast of Long Pine, or 10 miles south of Bassett, moving east at 10 miles per hour. And this covers Rock County
We don't have
in
anything.
Nebraska.
We don't have anything on the screen right now, Joe. I mean, there's no map or radar. If
Right, I'm going to just put it up now, so just give me a second.
okay,
Um, so, la 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 la. Here we go. Um, and here's the Massachusetts line. There's some heavy downpours going on in southern New Hampshire, parts of Vermont. In fact, a friend of mine, uh, Michael Dente, was a former intern of mine from many, many years ago, lives up in Vermont. Put a post up on Facebook about the fact that it was, you know, pouring out of control where he is in Vermont. I don't know exactly where, but I'm assuming that it was from this line. And you can see there's some strong storms up in northeastern New York and some heavier downpours in northern Vermont and also in Maine. We're seeing a scattering of thunderstorms embedded in a larger area of showers and downpours that are sliding to the east. A couple of cells there in north central PA, and then you see that little concentration there in northwest Ohio and extending southeastward to near or south of Cleveland, where we've got a couple of cells in a small severe thunderstorm warning box that's up there. And then we can go to Nebraska, where we've got several severe thunderstorm warnings, and you see the little red box. That's the tornado warning that I just told you about. And you can see the rains in Texas have moved further away from the coast, just some spotty downpours near the coast now, with Alberta well inland and long gone in Mexico, but some heavier rains from Del Rio on westward and also showing up a little bit further north near Midland and points northward. And again, some of that is going to wind up going up into New Mexico. And here's the stuff in Colorado, western Colorado, southeast Utah, and eastern Arizona, with an odd severe thunderstorm warning that popped up there in Arizona. Storm Prediction Center tonight, two severe thunderstorm watches, actually three. The one in New York State that extends into Vermont, and then another one. Is that just one box? No, that's one box. I'm sorry. It's just very oddly drawn. And then so it goes basically from northeastern New York to much of Maine, and the southern end of that goes into parts of south central Mass, a small tip that's touching the Connecticut state line, and two watches up in southeast Wyoming, northeast Colorado, western Nebraska, and then a second watch that's been extended further east into north central Nebraska and into southernmost South Dakota there. So that's for today. Now, tomorrow, we have a marginal risk tomorrow, Joe, for uh, northern New Jersey. I would say probably north and west of Route 80, into much of Pennsylvania except the southeast, all of Connecticut, southwest Mass, and southern New York, much of the Hudson Valley all the way up. So that's a marginal risk there. And then we've got an east-west area of slight risk from eastern Wyoming eastward into southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, and a small portion of western Wisconsin. That's where your tornado risk is tomorrow, in the plains in the plains slight risk zone, 2%. And then on day three, which is Saturday into Sunday morning, We have a slight risk over Wisconsin, eastern Minnesota, northeastern Iowa, and a marginal risk that goes down into northern Missouri. They're indicating some general thunderstorm activity possible in New England, except for Maine, down into Virginia, and then extending down into the Appalachians. I don't know if you're going to see anything more than a pop up on Saturday.
Well, tomorrow looks like a good day with the marginal risk pretty much covering much of the lower Hudson Valley, and so far we've managed to avoid any real action down here in the immediate tri-state area. That may come to an end tomorrow, so we'll have to see. And then kind of a scattering of activity as we move into the upcoming weekend, maybe more likely later in the day on Saturday and late Sunday, and then maybe early Monday. But I think, Joe, after Monday morning, you want to, offer any kind of hope for some relief, not necessarily as far as temperatures are concerned, but in terms of humidity. I do see a noticeable drop in the humidity later Monday into Tuesday of next week, although it'll still be quite warm, very warm, in fact, but not as hot as what we've seen today. And then maybe another drop in humidity late next week, say Thursday into Friday. Now, the chairman, and I want to thank him, Scott Briller, sent me a link to the National Weather Service office at Upton, New York National Weather Service. And the link is for longest heat waves, 90-degree plus in a row. And you look at this and you say what we're going through right now here in the tri-state area. As you pointed out, Joe, hip hip hooray! After an entire week so far of ballyhooing, dangerous, deadly heat here in the New York City metropolitan area, we finally in Central Park got to 91 today, finally. But you want to talk about deadly heat. You want to talk about record-setting heat. You want to talk about heat that is absolutely dangerous. Look at take a look at some of the heat waves on this list. June 26th to July 3rd, 1901. 1901. I don't think we had air conditioning back then, and I think we hardly had any fans either. But this was an 8-day heat wave. Are you ready? Listen to some of these numbers from June 26th to July 3rd, 1901. 91, 91, 93, 95, 95, 100, 100, and 94. Can you imagine if social media was around in 1901 to talk about it? And, we've been hearing, we've never seen anything like this this early in the month of June. I mean, it started on June 26th and ran until the 3rd of July, 8 consecutive days. And you want to talk about some blistering, horrendous heat. I remember this one, July 7th through the 16th, 1993. That's what? That's a little over 30 years ago. 98, 100, 101, 102. So Central Park strung together 3 consecutive 100-degree days during this heat wave in 1993. 97, 94, 94, 91, 90, and 90. I mean, okay, so please, if you're going to start telling me about how dangerous and how deadly this heat is in the tri-state area that we're experiencing now, folks, you want deadly heat, just look back in history, and I'll show you some heat waves that truly were deadly. I mean, my God, 3 consecutive 100-degree days in 1993. Here's one I remember with not a whole lot of fondness, Joe. An 8-day heat wave, July 29th through August 5th, 2002. And I say that because on August 3rd, 2002, we made the big move from Levittown, Long Island, up to our current residence here in Putnam Valley. There's nothing like, and we had 2 big moving vans that we had to move all of our furniture in the morning on August 3rd, and then we had to trek up here to unload that van. I remember the moving guys, they were sweating like crazy. They were out until like almost midnight to get all of this stuff into the house here. July 29th to August 5th, 2002, 96, 95, 95, 96, 97, 90, 92, 91. That, my friends, is a deadly heat wave. Nothing like what we have so far experienced here in the tri state area, where only today at Central Park we managed to barely make it above 90, 91 degrees.
All right, I know a few people on the chat board are speculating about the fact that the warmer ocean and the water vapor in the air and all the rest of it. The wind direction was wrong. Okay, the wind direction was wrong up until today. If you don't have a west, this is why all the hot temperatures were to the north because they had west winds and they were able to just burn up. Okay, from the standpoint of temperatures, but the winds, because of the position of where the ridge is, the winds here had a southerly component to them, and if it had a southerly component to them for the last couple of days, that's not a warm wind. So it's got nothing to do with climate change. It's got nothing to do with the warmer ocean, only in the sense that, okay, maybe it tempers the sea breeze. If anything, the warmer ocean would should make the shore locations warmer because the sea breeze would be tempered to some extent. So it's really more about the wind than anything else.
Right.
This just, it's also the middle of June, so you got to have, in a sense, you have to have a perfect setup because the atmosphere is still not quite warm. I mean, you could just tell by the fact that you look at the temperatures that were cooler as you went south. And I'm talking going south down into the mid-Atlantic states and down into the southeastern part of the United States was actually cooler than it was in New England. So it's this sort of upside down type of setup. You get the right wind direction, the ridge in the right place, you'll go to 100 or better. But this turned out not to be the case, and that's the way it was on Tuesday, the 20th of June, 2024. I wanted to say 1969, but that was Walter's time. All right,
Right.
WPC. WPC. Rainfall of New England, inch and a half plus, and also in northeastern New York. Now, some of that is coming tonight from the thunderstorms that we're getting, and then we've got the Sunday cold front, and they're probably going to even get some showers and storms, with stuff to the northwest Saturday night. But again, it sort of cuts off a bit, quarter to a half an inch, Long Island, New York City, and New Jersey, down into Virginia, half to three quarters along the coasts of the Carolinas down to southeast Georgia. Some heavier rains in central and north Florida on the order of an inch and a half plus. Along the Gulf states, it's a half to three quarters. The interior part of the deep south, it's mostly a quarter to a half. Big rains from eastern South Dakota eastward across Minnesota into Wisconsin and into northern Michigan. And then on the other side, on the Canada side as well. Also, some big rains in the central and southern Rockies, with anywhere from three quarters of an inch to an area of an inch and a half to 2 inches of liquid there. And you can see there's still some leftover stuff of a half, anywhere from three quarters of an inch to an inch and a half or more in southernmost Texas, because we've got another low that's going to form in the southwest Gulf in the coming days. So not much, in terms of everything that's moving. One thing about this time of year, when you start to look at the weather maps, you, you can go a little bit longer without seeing the maps really vary too much because the pressure patterns are not like how they are in the winter months or in the early part of the spring or the latter part of the fall, where you've got all sorts of things running around. In summertime, it's usually, a strong ridge, and maybe you've got a west-east jet across the northern tier and then up into southern Canada. So it doesn't make for much day-to-day changes really in terms of the outlook. But we're going into tomorrow. See, the isobars are starting to bend more southwesterly during and with more of a westerly component on Friday. So that's going to help to burn temperatures up. And the models are developing some thunderstorms, especially up in southern New England and the lower Hudson Valley northward. We'll see how far south they get. You've got storms moving into the western lakes Friday afternoon and evening and extending back into the plains. And here comes another low in the southwest Gulf that goes inland almost in the same place that Alberta went inland. So I don't know if this is going to have time to develop or not. into a tropical storm. It probably won't. Then on Saturday, looks like most of what goes on Saturday is to the north. There's some stuff that pops up during later Saturday evening and into the overnight. Some light stuff. It might be there. It might not be there. The main push is Sunday with this cold front, and we'll probably see some showers and storms. I think there's a chance we probably will see some severe weather risks being indicated tomorrow when SPC does their Sunday forecast. They'll probably have at least a marginal risk put up for late Sunday afternoon, Sunday night into Monday. Kind of lags a bit, that front does, but ultimately it does get out of the way. And then we've got another front, looks like maybe Wednesday night and Thursday that comes on through, and then we'll see if that lags, and then on and on and on it goes. But we do not have that big ridge building back in the east next week. That's an important difference, Joe. I think in how this pattern is going forward. It's a little more progressive, especially on the northern part of the jet stream. You do have a couple of short waves rolling along. Here's the first one for Sunday into Monday. Then here comes the next one for Wednesday into Thursday. That pulls out. You get a little bit of ridging, and then another short wave, a bigger short wave, comes in for the first couple of days of July. That's actually a pretty impressive little trough that comes down for the first couple of days of July.
Yeah, yeah. And that would be just in time. Well, as the 4th of July, and maybe you might that might be for a getaway time for people who want to get a jump on the holidays, because the 1st of July this year is on a Monday, and the 4th is on a Thursday. So this is not exactly going to be a 4th of July weekend, unless you possibly decide to take off on Thursday the 4th and then just extend it out through the following weekend, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th.
Which many people will do among
Probably.
the among those that are creative. Okay, Hurricane Center has two orange areas, Joe. Two orange areas, one off the east coast of the northeast coast of Florida and off the Georgia coast. 50% probability of development over the next 48 hours, and it's not going to be around in 7 days, so it's pretty much whatever it does in the next 48 hours. And they say satellite imagery shows that shower activity associated with the area of low pressure 175 miles north northeast of the northern Bahamas has become a little better organized during the past 24 hours. However, Reserve Hurricane earlier Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft data indicated that the system does not have a well-defined circulation. Conditions remain marginally conducive, and they are. There's time for this to maybe develop into a small system, but I don't think you're going to get much out of it. And then the other one in the Southwest Gulf, they now have a 60% probability of this developing in the not in the first 2 days, but a day maybe over the weekend, where that low is going to track again, probably taking a similar track to Alberto, except this time around, the rains will probably not extend as far north as it did with Alberto. So that'll be at least some consoling news to the folks in East Texas. I'm sorry, in South Texas.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Um, the that list that Scott Briller, the chairman, had given for extreme heat waves. This was for 7 days or more of extreme heat. So I broke it down into decades, Joe. And here's something interesting. So in again, this was 7 or more days consecutively of extreme heat, above 90 degrees, and sometimes going into the triple digits. So we had one such period in the 1890s. We had another such period in the 1900s. And of course, it must have been incredibly bad, to suffer through something like that without access to any fan or air conditioning back in the primitive days in the late 19th and early 20th century. Then we have two such days or two such strings of 7 or more exceedingly hot days in the 1940s, three such periods in the 1950s, one in the 60s, two in the 70s, two in the 80s, four in the 90s, two in the 2000s, from 2000 to 2010. And would you believe that in the 2010s up until now, the 2020s, we have not had anything remotely similar to a 7 day or more extreme heat wave? It's true.
Yeah.
In the 21st century at Central Park, we've only had two such days. That was like in the early 2000s. But in the 2010s and right now in the 2020s, we've had nothing like that. Although the news media wants you to get the idea, at least here in the New York metropolitan area, that we're in the midst of having a day or two or three or several like that. But again, as we pointed out, that's not going to happen. So if you look at this from the standpoint of decades, the worst decades or the worst period for extreme heat, 7 or more days of 90+ degree temperatures with occasionally hitting 100 degrees consecutively. We mentioned in 1993, 3 consecutive 100-degree days. The worst period was from the decade of the 80s into the 90s and from the 40s into the 50s. In the 40s into the 50s, we had 5 of those kind of stretches of exceedingly hot weather. And in the 80s, we had 6 of those kind of stretches of exceedingly hot 90+ degree weathers extending over more than a week. And again, we have not had anything like that in the decade of the 2010s or in the current decade of the 2020s. So you tell me about extreme heat and
Yeah. Well,
deadly.
look. Was it a heat? Was there extreme heat for parts of upstate New York, northeastern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine? Yes, for them that was the case. Okay, but that's everything is so New York's. Everything is New York City centric. The way the media world works. Uh, so you know, downstate and Long Island and New York City, not so much. New Jersey gets hot, away from the New Jersey shore. So for them, it was a moderate heat wave, but I certainly wouldn't call it I certainly wouldn't call it what a certain governor called it.
Well, the governor, by the way, the governor came out with a statement today saying that the combination of heat and humidity is going to make it feel in some parts of New York over the next couple of days like it's in the mid hundreds.
The mid hundreds, okay, the mid hundreds.
I think what she was thinking of was she was probably thinking of like 105.
No, no, I understand, but the mid hundreds is 100, 150.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's because we didn't have heat waves
We didn't
back in
have heat
the.
like this.
No, we didn't. Oh.
Oh dear.
Oh well, the governor's not going to be a guest on this show anytime soon, so not
Yeah.
worried about it. Um. Okay. Anyway, okay. So, Blue Jeopardy tonight. The last of the retired storm names. We're going to do 4 letters tonight, Joe. 4 letters: R, S, T, and W. Okay. There are 6 retired storms spread over those 4 letters: R, S, T, and W.
Okay.
So,
Well, we know what the W is.
well, Craig Carlberg's got one of the R's, and that's
Fred
Rita.
Flintstone would Fred Flintstone would be the first to tell you what the W
Right.
return.
And Christinapedia, Vincent Croce got Wilma. And yes, Mike Waterhouse, Sandy on there. And that's 3. So we've got 3 more. Everybody's saying the same 3. So we need to get away from Rita, Sandy, and Wilma. And Miss Fowlerite and Rich Rothmansky, Thomas in 2010, Joe. Thomas. And Dennis Cassia gets another one. Roxanne. Put on your red lights, Roxanne. Roxanne, which was back in 1995.
Yes.
So we've got Rita, Roxanne, Sandy, Thomas, Wilma, and Mr. Roth and Anthony Orr and Rich Rothmansky gets the last one, Joe, which was Stan in 2005.
What was the name?
Stan.
Anne. Okay.
So Rita, Roxanne, Sandy, Stan, Thomas, and Wilma. And there you have it. We've done all the retired names.
And incidentally, somebody on the chat board, let me just scroll back here for a moment. Um, William Huber. William Huber said, and this is in regard to extreme heat. He said, Joe Rayo, this didn't happen before in upstate New York and New England a few years ago, the extreme temperatures. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I beg
And
to
it did.
differ.
Well, it did up there. Yes, it did.
Caribou, Maine, yesterday tied the daily record of 96, which was set back in 2020. Now, if William Huber is right, then this is unique. They've never seen anything that high up in Caribou, Maine. That's as far north in New England as you can go. But it has also happened on 4 other days. The first time it happened was not in 2000, not in 1990 or 1980 or 1970. The first time it happened was June 29th, and June, Joe, not August or July, but June 29th, 1944. Then the second time was May 22nd. May 22nd, not even June. It was May. May 22nd, 1977, Caribou hit 96 degrees. The third time was June, again, there's that month again, 19th, 2020. And then yesterday, again, 96 degrees in Caribou, Maine in 2024. So, yes, it has been observed more than once in Caribou, way up in northern New England. And yes, it has been observed pretty well or pretty far back. So this is not really unique. It doesn't happen, admittedly, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And in fact, the Caribou Weather Service, the National Weather Service in Caribou, even pointed out that unfortunately, their records only go back as far as about 1933. So who knows? It may very well be that they hit 96 or even higher in the early part of the 20th century or in the late 19th century, but they don't know because nobody was keeping records way, way back then. So there you go.
While it doesn't happen very often up in northern Maine, we happen 5 days a week, Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. right here on my YouTube channel. So make sure, for those of you who are lurking in the background, to hit the subscribe button. And if you like tonight's show, hit the like button so that we can feel good as we have made it to the end of another work week, because we're going to be off Friday and Saturday. The Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Tempest, by Weatherflow. The revolutionary Tempest weather station is yours, and you will join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description of this podcast. The coupon code is Spring 2024, which came to an end today. Spring did. The coupon code is still valid. And use it if you make a purchase of anything on the website. And if you use it, you will get
10% off. And Paul Reed, I have no clue. Paul Reed on the chat board says, well, Joe Rayo, why weren't records kept up in Caribou before the 1930s? How would I know? I mean, first of all,
population was
yeah, I mean, like
a
who?
lot smaller in 1932. I mean, you didn't have a lot of people that lived up there.
Even in 2024, now I had friends who ended up traveling to northern Maine, to Aroostook County for the solar eclipse in April to see the total eclipse. The weather was beautiful up there for the eclipse. And what came back to me was, my God, nobody lives up here. This is 2024, and they're telling me nobody lives up there. So in 1930, or even earlier than 1930, who the heck was living up there, and who would have been around to keep records? That's probably why, Paul Reed, they didn't keep records there before the 1930s. And by the way, if any of you are tired of the hubbub of being in the tri-state area and being
probably, by the way, they also probably didn't keep records because they didn't have an air. It wasn't until they got an airport that
that's
they
true.
probably,
he also said, well, wasn't thermometers invented by Franklin? Yeah, well, they were invented by Franklin. The question is, who was up there to use the thermometer?
Right. And you didn't have Amazon back in the day.
We didn't have Amazon.
We didn't have Amazon, yes. In another couple of years, we're going to have an entire generation of people who have had a smartphone from childhood. Okay, in another few years. So the number of people that we're going to start dwindling.
It's a generational thing. I'm going to be waiting for my grandson years from now. Ask me, Pop, what was it like before iPhones were invented?
Right. Pop Pop, can
I
I
remember,
use your rotary mobile phone, please?
and I mean, I remember asking my mom, what was it like before TV? Because I couldn't fathom a civilization or a time when there wasn't television for me to watch Sonny Fox and Uncle Fred Scott and Captain Jack with Popeye or whatever. I mean, I lived in that era. I didn't live in the era when there was only radio and
Right.
that kind of thing. Oh,
Oh yes, that evil box with the
yeah,
radio.
yes,
Well, and the funny thing too is some people wouldn't it wouldn't get when the telephone was invented and the telephone started to become something that was going to be in people's homes. There were a lot of people who wouldn't get a telephone because they thought it was the devil.
yeah.
It was the hand of the devil. So anyhow, these two evil people that you see on your screen are now saying good night and have a good weekend. And we will see you on Sunday at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time.
And
Hi.
thank you for 61 likes tonight.
All right.
61. I'm going to ring the bell for 61, Joe.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm okay with that. Nighty
Okay.
night. Nighty night. Have a good weekend.
99.